The humiliation wasn't just that he shouted it across the crowded parking lot, it was that he made his cruelty sound like charity. "I gave you a car, right?" Harold boomed, his voice carrying over the Saturday morning bustle of Briar Glen. I tightened my grip on the baby carrier, feeling my 3-month-old daughter stir against my chest. He smiled at the onlookers, playing the benevolent patriarch, knowing full well that the keys in my pocket opened nothing but a trap. The humidity in Briar Glen always felt personal, like a heavy, damp hand pressing down on your shoulder, reminding you that you were stuck in a river town where nothing ever really changed. I adjusted the strap of the carrier, digging into my clavicle. Nora was only 3 months old, but after walking 12 blocks in the Missouri heat, she felt heavier than a sack of concrete. My sedan, a beige mid-sized curse on wheels, sat dead in the parking lot of my apartment complex 3 miles away. It had refused to turn over this morning, making that hollow, clicking sound that signals an expensive problem. I had tried to call a rideshare, but the app just spun in an endless searching loop. In a town this size, drivers were scarce on a Tuesday morning, and the ones who were active usually hung around the airport 40 minutes north. So, I walked. I needed diapers. I needed formula. And frankly, I needed to get out of the apartment before the silence of the walls started screaming at me. The pediatrician had said Nora's weight was perfect, her percentiles right on track. I held on to that small victory as I navigated the uneven sidewalk where tree roots had buckled the concrete. 33 years old, a marketing degree, a decade of work experience, and here I was, sweating through my shirt, walking to the grocery store like I was a teenager who had missed the bus. Bellwood Market was the heart of Briar Glen. It was one of those high-end independent grocers that smelled like roasted coffee and judgment. My grandfather, Harold Bell, did not own the market, but he walked through it like he owned the ground it stood on. The Bell name was plastered on the library wing, the park fountain, and the plaque at the elementary school. In this town, being a Bell meant you were royalty. Being a Bell who couldn't start her car, however, meant you were a disappointment. I saw his Lincoln Navigator parked in the front row, taking up 2 spaces. My stomach did a slow, sick roll. I considered turning around, but I was out of wipes, and Nora had been fussy all morning. I just needed to get in, grab the essentials, and get out. I kept my head down, focusing on the scuffed toes of my sneakers, praying for invisibility. I made it to the baby aisle without incident. I grabbed the sensitive skin wipes and a canister of formula, tucking them into the basket of the stroller I was using to haul groceries since Nora was strapped to my chest. I was moving toward the self-checkout, calculating the fastest route to the exit, when his voice boomed across the produce section. "Anna." It wasn't a greeting, it was a summons. I froze. The chatter in the store dipped. In Briar Glen, when Harold Bell spoke, people stopped to listen. It was a reflex, bred into the town over 50 years of his influence. I turned slowly. Harold was standing by a display of organic Honeycrisp apples, holding court with the store manager and Mrs. Gable, the town gossip. He looked exactly as he always did, silver hair perfectly coiffed, a navy blazer despite the heat, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hello, grandfather," I said, keeping my voice low. I shifted my weight, trying to shield Nora from the sudden attention. He didn't lower his volume. He took 2 large steps toward me, his polished loafers clicking on the tile. He looked at the stroller filled with groceries, then at the sweat on my forehead, and finally at the baby strapped to me. He frowned, a theatrical expression of confusion designed for an audience. "What on earth are you doing walking in this heat?" he asked. "With the baby?" "The weather is nice," I lied, forcing a smile that felt like cracking plaster. "We needed some fresh air," he laughed, a sharp, barking sound. "Fresh air. It is 90 degrees out there, Anna. You look like you just ran a marathon." He turned to Mrs. Gable, shaking his head. "Young mothers today, they think suffering makes them noble." "I am fine," I said, my grip on the stroller handle tightening until my knuckles turned white. "We were just leaving." "Where is the car?" he demanded. He wasn't asking. He was interrogating. "It is at home," I said. "I felt like walking." He stared at me, his blue eyes hard and bright. He knew. Somehow, he always knew when I was struggling. He could smell vulnerability like a shark smells blood in the water. "You felt like walking," he repeated, his voice dripping with skepticism. Then he raised his voice again, pitching it to the back of the store. "I gave you a car. Right, I made sure you had a safe, reliable vehicle for my great-granddaughter. Did I not?" The humiliation washed over me, hot and prickly. He was framing it perfectly, to everyone in the store. He was the generous patriarch providing for his struggling granddaughter, and I was the ungrateful, reckless mess who was endangering a baby by dragging her through the heat instead of driving the gift he had so graciously bestowed. "Yes, grandfather," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You did." "Then drive it," he bellowed, throwing his hands up. "For God's sake, Anna, stop trying to be a martyr. It is embarrassing. You have a car. Use it." He turned back to the manager, dismissing me completely. "Honestly, I give them everything, and they still choose the hard way." I walked out of the store. I didn't run, because bells do not run, but I walked so fast that my shins burned. I didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away, hidden behind the thick oak trees of the park. My hands were shaking. It was the narrative. It was always the narrative. Harold the benevolent, Anna the chaotic. I trudged the rest of the way home, the formula canister rattling in the stroller basket. When I finally got back to my apartment complex, the sun was starting to dip, casting long, bruised shadows across the parking lot. I walked past my car. It was sitting exactly where I had left it, looking innocent and malice-free, but as I got closer, I saw the bright orange sticker slapped on the driver's side window. Notice of intent to tow. I stopped, staring at it. My registration was current. I had the sticker on the plate. I unlocked the door and threw my bag on the passenger seat, unbuckling Nora and setting her carrier down on the pavement next to me so I could lean in. I popped the glove box. I pulled out the registration envelope. I had looked at it a dozen times, but I had never really read it. I had always just assumed. When Harold gave me the keys 6 months ago, right after I told him I was pregnant, he had made a big show of handing over a thick folder of paperwork. "Everything is taken care of," he had said. "You just worry about the baby." I looked at the registration card now. Owner Harold J. Bell. Co-owner none. My name wasn't on it. Not anywhere. I felt a cold drop of sweat slide down my spine. He hadn't given me a car. He had loaned me his car. I pulled out the insurance card. It was expired. By 3 days. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest. I grabbed my phone and dialed my mother. Elaine Bell answered on the second ring. She sounded breathless, like she had been running, though I knew she was likely just pacing her living room, rearranging throw pillows. "Hi, honey," she said. "How is the baby?" "Mom," I said, cutting through the pleasantries. "I ran into grandfather at the market." There was a pause, a hesitation that told me she already knew. "Oh, yes, I heard." "You heard?" "Mrs. Gable called," she said. "She said you looked flushed, and that Harold was quite upset." "He humiliated me, Mom," I said, watching a stray cat pick its way across the hood of the beige sedan. "He shouted at me in front of everyone. He made it sound like I was incompetent." "Oh, Anna," she sighed. "You know how he is. He is old school. He worries about appearances. Seeing you walking like that, it probably scared him. He wants you to be safe." "He didn't ask if I was safe," I said. "He asked if I was grateful." "He loves you," she said, her voice dropping into that automatic soothing tone she had used on me for 30 years. "He provides for us. You have to understand his language. He gives things because he cares." "Mom, the car isn't in my name," I said. "I just checked the registration. It is in his name." "Well, of course it is," she said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. "It is for insurance purposes. Anna, it is cheaper for the family fleet. He is saving you money." It isn't saving me anything if I can't drive it, I said. There is a tow sticker on the window, and the insurance card in the glove box is expired. Don't be dramatic, she said. Just call him, apologize for the scene at the market, tell him you appreciate the car. He will fix the paperwork. You just need to smooth his feathers. I shouldn't have to smooth his feathers to have a working vehicle that I supposedly own, I snapped. Anna, her voice hardened. Do not be difficult. We all make compromises. He pays for your phone bill. He helped with the deposit on your apartment. Just apologize, for the baby's sake. She hung up before I could argue. I stood there in the parking lot, the phone buzzing with the disconnect tone. The logic was suffocating. We all make compromises. That was the Bell family motto. We traded our autonomy for comfort, and we paid interest in our self-respect. I picked up Nora's carrier and hauled everything up the 2 flights of stairs to my apartment. Inside, the air conditioning was rattling, struggling to keep the humidity at bay. I put Nora down for a nap and sat at the kitchen table. Opening my laptop, I logged into the insurance app. I had my own login, or at least I thought I did. I had set it up when I got the car, linking it to the policy number Harold had given me. Status non-renewed. I clicked on the Correspondence tab. There was a notice of non-renewal generated 4 weeks ago. The reason listed was Administrative Request. I clicked to view the PDF of the letter. It had been mailed to an address on Willow Creek Drive. That was the house I lived in with Evan, 2 years ago. I hadn't lived there since the breakup. I had updated my address with the bank, the post office, and the DMV. Harold knew where I lived. He had visited this apartment. Why was the insurance company sending cancellation notices to a house I hadn't set foot in for 24 months? I closed the laptop, my head pounding. I needed to get ready for work tomorrow. I had a presentation for a local boutique that wanted to rebrand, and I needed to be sharp. The next morning, I took a bus. It added 45 minutes to my commute. And I had to drop Nora off at daycare as soon as they opened just to make it to the office on time. Lark Loom Creative was a small agency, just 6 of us in a converted warehouse space downtown. It was the one thing in my life that felt entirely mine. I had gotten the job without Harold's help. I paid my own taxes. I bought my own coffee. I walked in, shaking off the umbrella I had used to shield myself from the morning drizzle. My manager, Sarah, was standing by the coffee machine. She was a kind woman, 40-ish, with a no-nonsense attitude that usually made me feel safe. Today, she looked uncomfortable. "Morning, Anna," she said, handing me a mug. "Rough commute." "Car trouble," I said, keeping it vague. "Waiting on parts," she nodded, looking down at her shoes. "Hey, listen, I wanted to give you a heads up. One of our clients, the owner of the silo. She sent me a screenshot this morning." My stomach dropped. "A screenshot of what?" Sarah grimaced. "It is from the Briar Glen Community Buzz Facebook group. Someone posted about you, about yesterday." She turned her phone around. The post was from an account I didn't recognize. "Sad to see the Bell family struggling. Saw Harold Bell having to lecture his granddaughter at the market yesterday because she was dragging a newborn around in the heat instead of driving the car he bought her. Some people just don't want to be helped. Praying for that baby." There were 40 comments. Most of them were praying hands emojis or comments about how entitled the younger generation was. "I am so sorry, Anna," Sarah said softly. "I told the client it was none of her business. But, you know this town. People talk." "I know," I said. I felt numb. It wasn't just gossip. It was a professional liability. If clients thought I was unstable or irresponsible, they wouldn't trust me with their brands. "I will handle it, Sarah. I am sorry it bled into work. Take your time today," she said. "Just breathe." I spent the morning staring at spreadsheets, the numbers swimming before my eyes. Harold hadn't just yelled at me. He had broadcast a signal. He had given permission for the town to judge me. At lunch, I met Evan. We met at a diner halfway between my office and his job at the architectural firm. Evan Cross was a good man. We hadn't worked out as a couple. We were too different, our quiet resentments piling up until they suffocated the romance. But he was a good father to Nora. He was already in the booth when I arrived. A cup of black coffee in front of him. He looked tired. "Hey," he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "I signed the custody schedule, every other weekend, plus Wednesday evenings, just like we discussed." "Thank you," I said, taking the envelope. "I will file it with the court clerk on Monday." He hesitated, tracing the rim of his cup. "Anna, I got a call yesterday." I paused, my fork hovering over my salad. "From who?" "Your grandfather," Evan said. I set the fork down. "Why is Harold calling you?" "He said he wanted to check in," Evan said, choosing his words carefully. "He asked how I was doing, asked about work. And then he started asking about you." "What did he ask?" "He asked if I was concerned about Nora's transportation safety," Evan said. He looked up, his eyes serious. "He asked if I thought you were financially stable enough to maintain a vehicle. He mentioned something about you refusing to drive the car he gave you." "He didn't give it to me, Evan," I said, my voice rising. I lowered it quickly. "The title is in his name. The insurance is expired. He set me up." Evan frowned. "Why would he do that?" "Control," I said. "It is always control. If I drive it, I am indebted to him. If I don't, I am negligent." "He made it sound like he was worried you were having a breakdown," Evan said gently. "He used the word instability. Anna, if he goes to a judge with that, if he tries to say you can't provide safe transport for Nora—" He didn't have to finish the sentence. In family court, perception was reality. If Harold Bell said I was unstable, and he had a town full of witnesses who saw me acting out at the grocery store, I was in trouble. "I am stable," I said firmly. "I have a job. I have an apartment. I am taking care of her." "I know you are," Evan said. "I am on your side, Anna. But you need to get ahead of this. Whatever game he is playing, he has been playing it a lot longer than you have." I went back to the office, but I couldn't focus. The web was tightening. The car, the gossip, the call to Evan. It wasn't a series of bad luck events. It was a campaign. That night, after I put Nora down, I sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by papers. I was trying to build a budget that included a car payment, because I knew I couldn't rely on the beige sedan anymore. I logged into a credit monitoring site. I needed to know what my score was, to see if I could even qualify for a loan on my own. I pulled the report. Score 720. Good. I scrolled down to the inquiry section. There was a hard inquiry from 3 days ago, Mid-State Auto Finance. I hadn't applied for a loan 3 days ago. I clicked for details. The inquiry was for a refinance application. Someone had used my social security number to check rates for refinancing an auto loan, but I didn't have an auto loan. The beige sedan was supposedly paid off by Harold, unless it wasn't, or unless someone was trying to open debt in my name to anchor me down. I sat back, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark living room. I looked over at the bassinet where Nora was sleeping, her chest rising and falling in a perfect, peaceful rhythm. For 33 years, I had played by the Bell family rules. I had smiled when I was supposed to smile. I had written the thank you notes. I had accepted the gifts that came with invisible strings, telling myself it was worth it for the safety net. But it wasn't a safety net. It was a spider web. They wanted me to crawl back. They wanted me to call Harold, crying, apologizing, begging for him to fix the insurance, to fix the registration, to make the bad gossip go away. They wanted me to sign whatever paper they put in front of me so I could have the privilege of driving a car that wasn't mine to a life they approved of. I looked at my hands. They were trembling, not from fear, but from a sudden, white-hot clarity. "No," I whispered to the empty room. I stood up and walked over to the bassinet. I reached down and lightly touched Nora's tiny, soft hand. "I promise you," I whispered to her sleeping form, "I am going to fix this. Not the way they want, my way." I walked back to the table and closed the laptop. I wasn't going to apologize. I wasn't going to call Elaine and ask her to smooth things over. If Harold Bell wanted a war over a beige sedan, I would give him one. But I wasn't just going to fight for the car. I was going to fight for the title to the car, to my life, and to my daughter's future. I would start from zero if I had to. I would walk to work in the rain until my shoes fell apart, but I would never, ever let them hold the keys to my life again. I grabbed a notepad and a pen. I wrote down one line. Step 1. Find out who actually owns the car. I turned off the light. The room went black. But for the first time in days, I didn't feel lost in the dark. I felt like I was finally opening my eyes. The county clerk's office was a study in beige bureaucracy. Smelling faintly of floor wax and stale coffee, I sat on a hard plastic chair, number 42 crumpled in my sweating hand, waiting for a woman named oblivious-looking Linda to call me forward. I had taken a half-day off work, pleading a migraine, which wasn't entirely a lie. My head had been throbbing with a dull, rhythmic ache ever since I found the tow sticker on my car window. When my number was finally called, I walked to the counter with a forced calmness. I needed answers, not sympathy. I need to check the title status on a vehicle, I said, sliding the VIN number I had copied from the dashboard onto the counter. I believe there has been a mix-up with the registration. The clerk, a woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose, typed slowly. The clicking of her keyboard felt like a countdown. She squinted at the screen, then looked up at me, then back at the screen. You are looking for the owner of record, she asked. I am the owner, I said, or I am supposed to be. My grandfather transferred it to me 6 months ago. Honey, this vehicle is not titled to an individual, she said, her voice flat. It is titled to a trust. I felt the ground shift slightly. A trust. The Bell Family Mobility Trust. She read, Care of Harold J. Bell, Trustee. I stared at her. The Bell Family Mobility Trust? I have never even heard of that. Well, that is who owns the car, she said, printing out a half sheet of paper. And the registration is current, but it is sent to a distinct P.O. box, not a residential address. If you are not the trustee, you have no legal claim to this vehicle. You are essentially driving a fleet car without a rental agreement. I took the paper. The text was blurry through the sudden film of tears I refused to let fall. Bell Family Mobility Trust. It sounded so official, so benevolent. It sounded like something designed to help crippled relatives get to doctor's appointments. But I knew what it really was. It was a holding pen. I walked out of the courthouse and into the blinding midday sun. I didn't go back to work. I called a cab, spending $30 I didn't really have, and gave the driver the address of the Bell estate. The estate sat on a hill overlooking the river, a sprawling brick colonial that looked like it belonged on a postcard for the American dream. The iron gates were open, a subtle signal that visitors were expected, or perhaps that the occupants felt too untouchable to need barriers. I walked up the long driveway. The landscaping was manicured to within an inch of its life. Not a blade of grass was out of place. It was perfect. It was stifling. I rang the bell, and the housekeeper, Maria, answered. She looked at me with sad eyes. She had known me since I was a child, since before my parents' divorce, before the family fractured. He is in the sunroom, Miss Anna, she whispered. I found Harold sitting in a wicker armchair, reading the Wall Street Journal. The room was glass-walled, filled with ferns and orchids that thrived in the humidity. He looked up as I entered, folding the newspaper with a deliberate slowness. He didn't look angry. He looked amused, with a touch of performative sadness, like a disappointed teacher waiting for a student to confess. Anna, he said, I did not expect you until the weekend. The car isn't mine, I said. I didn't sit down. I stood in the doorway, my hands clenched at my sides. I went to the clerk. It is titled to a trust. Harold sighed, taking off his reading glasses. He gestured to the empty chair opposite him. Sit down. Anna, you look flushed. I am not sitting, I said. You told me you gave me that car. You told me it was a gift for the baby, but I don't own it. I have been driving a car that belongs to a trust I didn't know existed. with insurance that you canceled." "I did not cancel the insurance," he said smoothly. "The policy lapsed because of an administrative error. These things happen when paperwork is handled in bulk." "An administrative error that coincided with me not visiting for 2 weeks," I asked. "An error that sent the notice to a house I haven't lived in for a year." He chuckled, a dry sound like leaves scraping together. "You are being paranoid. It is unbecoming." "Who owns the car?" "Grandfather." "The family owns the car," he said. "The trust holds the assets to protect them. It is standard estate planning. You know this. We protect the capital from external liabilities." "I am not an external liability," I said. "I am your granddaughter." "And you are a single mother struggling to make ends meet," he said. His voice dropped an octave, becoming soft, reasonable, and terrifying. "Anna, look at yourself. You are walking around town with a newborn in the heat. You are renting an apartment in a neighborhood that has had 2 break-ins in the last month. You are proud, and I admire that. But pride does not buy diapers." "I am managing," I said. "Are you?" he asked. "The town does not think so. People are talking. They are worried. I am worried." He reached into the pocket of his blazer and pulled out a folded document. He placed it on the glass table between us. "The car was a gift," he said. "But in this family, gifts are investments. We invest in people who share our values, who share our standards." "What is that?" I asked, looking at the paper. "It is a solution," he said. "I had Derek draw it up this morning. It is a family support understanding. It simply formalizes our arrangement. If you sign it, I will transfer the title of the car to your name, fully. I will also prepay the insurance for a year, and," he paused, watching my face, "I will open a savings account for Nora with $5,000 in it." My heart hammered against my ribs. A paid-off car, $5,000. It would solve everything. The panic that had been eating at my stomach for days would vanish. "What are the terms?" I asked. "Just standard things," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "Regular Sunday dinners, holidays at the estate, and a small clause about residency. Residency. It stipulates that you will relocate to a residence approved by the trust," he said. "There is a lovely cottage on the edge of the property, near the gatehouse. It is empty. You would be safe there, close to family." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You want me to move back here into the servants' cottage?" "I want you where I can help you," he corrected. "Where we can ensure Nora is raised properly, where she is not being dragged through parking lots in the sun." I looked at the paper. It wasn't a lifeline. It was a leash. If I signed that, I would be his tenant, his dependent, and his subordinate. He would own my roof, my car, and my schedule. "Family help comes with family standards," he said quietly. "It is time to come home. Anna, stop playing at being independent. It is clearly not working." The trembling started in my hands and moved up to my shoulders. It wasn't fear. It was a sudden, violent clarity. He didn't want to help me succeed. He wanted to watch me fail so he could be the one to save me. He had engineered the failure. The expired insurance, the gossip, the toe sticker. It was all designed to drive me to this chair, to this moment, to this signature. "No," I said. Harold blinked. "Excuse me. No," I said louder. "I am not signing that. I am not moving on to the estate." "Anna," he warned, his voice hardening, "think very carefully. If you walk out of here, you walk out without the car. You walk out with nothing." "I would rather walk with nothing than drive with your permission," I said. I turned and walked out of the sunroom. "You are making a mistake," he called after me, his voice echoing off the glass. "You will be back. Anna, when the rent is due, you will be back." I marched out the front door and down the long driveway. My legs were shaking so hard I thought I might collapse, but I kept putting one foot in front of the other until I was outside the gates. I took the bus back to town. The ride was 40 minutes of stop-and-go motion that made my nausea worse, but my mind was racing. He had admitted it. Family help comes with family standards. I got back to the office late. Sarah, my manager, looked concerned, but I just headed straight to my desk. I needed to work. I needed to make money that didn't come from a trust. "Hey," a voice said from the next cubicle. I looked up. It was Mina Rowe. Mina was our graphic designer, a woman with bright purple braids and a cynical sense of humor that usually kept to herself. We had never really talked about personal things, but she was looking at me with a strange intensity. "I heard you on the phone with the cab company earlier," she said, keeping her voice low. "About the car seat." I flinched. "Oh, yeah, it is fine. You don't have a car right now, do you?" she asked. "It is complicated," I said. "Look," Mina said, "I am not trying to get in your business, but I have a stroller in my trunk. It is a jogger, heavy duty. My kid outgrew it 2 years ago, and I've been too lazy to donate it. It handles the sidewalks around here better than that umbrella thing you are using." I looked at her, waiting for the catch, waiting for the lecture about responsibility. "It is just a stroller, Anna," she said. Seeing my hesitation, "I need the trunk space. Take it." "I can't pay you for it right now," I said. "I didn't ask you to pay me," she said. "Also, there is a parents group that meets at the community center on Thursdays. It is not like the snooty mommy and me classes uptown. It is mostly a swap meet. People trade clothes, gear, advice on which pediatricians take Medicaid. You should come." "Why?" I asked. "Because you look like you are fighting a war," Mina said, shrugging. "And you can't fight a war without supplies." I took the stroller. It was a faded navy blue, scratched on the frame, but the wheels were solid air-filled tires that glided over the cracks in the pavement. Walking home with it felt different. It felt like a tool I had earned, not a favor I had been granted. That night, after I put Nora to sleep, I sat down with my laptop again. Harold's words about the administrative error kept playing in my head. The notice was sent to a house I haven't lived in for a year. I logged into my bank account. I went to the profile settings. My address was listed as 402 Willow Creek Drive, the old house. I checked my credit card account. Same thing. I checked my cell phone provider, the one bill Harold paid directly. The billing address was the estate, but the usage address was listed as Willow Creek Drive. I hadn't changed these back. I was meticulous about my address. I had forwarded my mail the day I moved out. I clicked on the History of Changes tab on the bank site. Address updated June 12th. Method phone request. June 12th was 3 weeks ago. Someone had called my bank, impersonating me or claiming to be authorized, and changed my address back to my old one. That was why I wasn't getting my statements. That was why I missed the insurance notice. I thought about who had access, who knew my social security number, who knew my mother's maiden name Elaine knew, but Elaine couldn't navigate an online banking menu to save her life. Then I remembered Harold's comment I had Derek draw it up this morning. Derek Bell, my cousin, the golden boy who had failed the bar exam twice but now worked as Harold's estate manager. Derek handled the filings. Derek handled the passwords. Derek had helped me set up my online banking 5 years ago when I opened the account. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. They weren't just being negligent. They were actively sabotaging my communication lines. They were diverting my mail to create chaos, to make me look disorganized, to make me miss payments. I needed help, not family help. I needed a professional. I remembered a flyer I had seen at the library, the one Mina had mentioned. Legal aid clinic. Thursdays. But I needed something more aggressive than legal aid. I needed someone who understood estates. I searched online for estate litigation Briar Glen. The results were mostly big firms that I knew Harold golfed with. I scrolled past the first page, past the second. I found a listing for Stone Marrow LLP. The website was dated, simple, no flash, no photos of smiling lawyers in suits, just a phone number and a list of practice areas. Probate, trust disputes, elder law. I called the number the next morning on my lunch break, hiding in the stairwell. "Stone and Marrow," a gravelly voice answered. "I would like to schedule a consultation," I said. "I was referred by a clinic." I lied. "We have an opening at 4, the voice said. Bring your paperwork. I left work early, pleading a doctor's appointment. Stone Marrow was located in a strip mall on the south side of town, sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a payday loan place. It didn't look promising. Inside, the office was cluttered with file boxes. There was no receptionist. A man was sitting at a desk in the back, buried behind a stack of folders. He looked up. He was younger than he sounded on the phone, maybe mid-30s, with messy dark hair and a tie that was loosened at the collar. I am looking for an attorney, I said. I am Jordan Pike, he said, standing up. I am a paralegal. Mr. Stone is in court, and Mr. Marrow is retired in Florida. I handle the intake. You are the clinic referral. Yes, I said. My name is Anna Bell. He paused. Bell. As in the Bell estate. Yes, I said defensively. But I don't have their money. That is why I am here. He gestured to a chair. Sit down. Tell me what is happening. I told him everything. I told him about the car, the market, the trust name, the family support understanding, the address changes, the tow sticker. I talked for 20 minutes without stopping. Jordan listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look at his phone. He took notes on a yellow legal pad with a rapid, scratching shorthand. When I finished, I sat back, exhausted. So, I said, can I get the car back? Can I force them to give me the title? Jordan tapped his pen on the desk. He looked at his notes, then at me. Let me ask you a question. Anna, he said, if the car was truly yours, why would the paperwork still need Harold's permission? I blinked. Because he is the trustee. No, Jordan said, because it was never a gift. A gift, legally, requires delivery, intent, and acceptance. Once it is given, the giver loses control. Harold never lost control. He retained the title. He retained the insurance policy. He retained the keys metaphorically. He leaned forward. This isn't just about a car. This is a textbook case of constructive control. He creates a dependency by offering an asset the car and then weaponizes the maintenance of that asset to enforce behavior. He didn't give you transportation. He gave you a behavior modification tool. Constructive control, I repeated. The phrase felt heavy, like a diagnosis. The address changes are the smoking gun, Jordan said. Changing a mailing address to divert notices, that is bordering on fraud, definitely interference. It proves intent to manufacture a default. He wanted you to miss that insurance payment, so he had grounds to claim you were irresponsible. So what do? I asked. I can't afford a lawsuit against Harold Bell. He has lawyers who cost more per hour than I make in a week. We don't sue yet, Jordan said. We build a fortress. You need to document everything, every text, every voicemail, every piece of mail that arrives late. Write down dates, times, and contents. If he calls, let it go to voicemail so you have a recording. If you speak to him, send a follow-up email immediately summarizing the conversation. Why? Because he is building a case against you, Jordan said grimly. He is building a case for incompetence. We need to build a case for coercion. We need to prove that your instability is actually manufactured by his interference. He ripped the top sheet off his legal pad and handed it to me. Start a log today. And Anna, yes. Do not sign that family support understanding. If you sign it, you are consenting to the control. You are signing away your right to complain about it later. I refused it, I said. Jordan smiled. A small, sharp expression. Good. Then brace yourself. Because when a controller is told no, they don't back down. They escalate. I left the office feeling a strange mixture of fear and relief. For the first time, someone had looked at the chaos of my life and given it a name. Constructive control. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't ungrateful. I was being managed. I walked home, pushing the sturdy stroller Mina had given me. I stopped at a stationery store and bought a thick-bound notebook, the log. I got home just as the sun was setting. I carried Nora up the stairs. Her weight warm and solid against me, I felt stronger than I had in weeks. I had a plan. I had a paralegal. I had a notebook. I unlocked my apartment door. There was a notification slip from the post office stuck to the frame. Attempted delivery. Certified mail. I frowned. I hadn't ordered anything. I pulled the slip off. The sender was listed as Bell Family Mobility Trust, Legal Division. I went inside and settled Nora. Then, with shaking hands, I logged on to the USPS website and entered the tracking number. I couldn't see the letter, but I could see the delivery status details. Then my phone buzzed. An email notification. It was from Derek. Subject notice of recovery. Anna. Per grandfather's instructions, please see the attached digital copy of the letter sent via certified mail today. Due to your refusal to comply with the family support understanding and the subsequent lapse in insurance coverage, which constitutes a breach of the vehicle usage agreement implied, the trust is exercising its right to recover the asset. We have scheduled the repossession of the 2022 Toyota Camry for tomorrow morning at 8:00 a.m. Please remove all personal items. This is for your own safety, as operating an uninsured vehicle is illegal. Best, Derek. I stared at the screen. Breach of trust conditions. Implied agreement. They were taking the car. They weren't just towing it to a shop. They were repossessing it. They were stripping me of the one thing I needed to get to work, to get Nora to the doctor, to escape. I felt the panic rise, hot and choking, but then I looked at the notebook on the table. When a controller is told no, they escalate. Jordan had predicted this. I didn't cry. I didn't call Elaine. I didn't text Derek back. I opened the notebook to the first page. I wrote the date, July 15th, 6:45 p.m. Received notice of repossession via email from Derek Bell. Cited implied agreement and insurance lapse. Note: insurance lapse was caused by unauthorized address change initiated by third party. I wrote it down in black ink. It wasn't a diary entry. It was evidence. I looked at the empty space on the page. They could take the car. They could take the title. But they had made one critical mistake. By taking the car, they thought they were stranding me. But really, they were just cutting the last string that tied me to them. I closed the notebook. Let them come. The text message from my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, not the town gossip, but a kindly older widow who lived in 4B, arrived at 10 in the morning on Wednesday. I was in the middle of a client strategy meeting at Lark Loom, projecting a slide deck about color theory for a boutique bakery. My phone buzzed against the mahogany conference table, a singular, angry vibration. I glanced down, expecting a daycare update. 2 men in a truck just hooked up the beige car. I asked if they were APA. They said repossession. I thought you should know. I stared at the screen. The words blurred into a gray smudge. My chest tightened. A physical contraction so sharp I almost dropped the clicker for the projector. Anna, Sarah asked, her voice cutting through the fog. You were saying about the pastel palette. I looked up. The client, a woman named Beverly who took cupcakes very seriously, was waiting. Right, I said. My voice was steady. It was terrifyingly steady. The pastel palette suggests approachability. It softens the brand image. I finished the presentation. I answered questions about font weights and logo placement. I smiled. I shook hands. I did not run out of the room. I did not scream. I did not call Derek and scream at him that he was a thief. I had to keep my job. If I lost the car, I lost my mobility. If I lost my job, I lost Nora. That was the equation Harold was writing for me, and I refused to solve it with a breakdown. When the meeting ended, I walked to the break room and poured a cup of coffee I didn't want. I drank it black, the bitter heat scalding my tongue, grounding me. The car was gone. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was 45 minutes of my day. It was the ability to get to the pediatrician when Nora had a fever. It was the ability to buy more than 2 bags of groceries at a time. It was the steel shell that separated me from the elements, from the eyes of the town, from the vulnerability of being a pedestrian in a place built for drivers. I finished the workday. I had to. Leaving the office at 5 o'clock felt like stepping into a different world. Usually, I would walk to the parking garage, slide into the Camry, and blast the air conditioning. Today, I unfolded the heavy-duty jogging stroller Mina had given me, which I had started keeping in the office utility closet, and walked 4 blocks to the bus stop. The bus schedule in Briar Glen was a suggestion, not a promise. I waited 20 minutes in the baking afternoon sun, my work blouse sticking to my back. When the bus finally wheezed up to the curb, the driver, a man with tired eyes, didn't even look at me as I struggled to hoist the stroller up the steps. I picked up Nora from daycare. The daycare center was a secure facility, which meant I had to buzz in. The director, a woman named Mrs. Higgins, watched me navigate the stroller through the double doors. "No car today?" she asked pleasantly. "It is in the shop," I lied. The lie tasted like ash. "Just for a few days." "Oh, that is a shame," she said. "Harold was just here last week dropping off a donation check for the new playground. He mentioned he wanted to make sure the facility was up to snuff for his great-granddaughter. Such a generous man." I froze, my hand hovering over Nora's cubby. Harold had been here. He was circling every part of my life, marking his territory like a wolf. "Yes," I said tight-lipped. "He is very involved." The trip home took an hour and 10 minutes. By the time I wrestled the stroller, the diaper bag, and a crying Nora up the 2 flights of stairs to my apartment, my arms were trembling with muscle failure. I put Nora in her playpen and walked to the window. I looked down at the parking lot. Spot 22 was empty. There was a fresh oil stain where the Camry had been, a dark, ugly bruise on the asphalt. I didn't cry. I didn't let myself. If I started crying, I wasn't sure I would be able to stop before I had to feed Nora. And she needed a mother, not a puddle of grief. My phone rang. It was Evan. "Hey," he said. The background noise suggested he was still at his firm. "I just drove past your complex. Your spot is empty. Did you get the issue sorted?" "They took it, Evan," I said. I sat down on the floor, leaning my back against the wall. "Derek sent a repo team this morning while I was at work. They claimed the trust authorized it because of the insurance lapse." "That is insane," Evan said. "The insurance lapse they caused Anna, that is theft." "It is legal theft," I said. "The title is in the trust. The trust has a registered agent. Derek signed the order. It is watertight." "I am coming over," he said. "I am bringing dinner, and I am bringing you a set of keys to my truck. I can take the bus to work for a few weeks. It is a straight shot from my place." "No," I said quickly. "Anna, don't be stubborn. You can't lug a baby around on the bus in July." "It is not about stubbornness," I said, lowering my voice so I wouldn't wake the baby I had just soothed. "Evan, think about it. Harold is building a case. He is telling people I am unstable. He is telling people I can't provide. If I start driving your truck, what is the next narrative? That I am dependent on my ex, that I am bouncing from man to man for support. I am the father of your child," Evan argued. "It is not bouncing. To a family court judge who plays golf with my grandfather, it looks like instability," I said. "It looks like I can't stand on my own 2 feet. Harold will twist it. He will say, 'Look, she lost the car I gave her, and now she is borrowing one from the father she isn't married to. Clearly, she is chaotic.'" Evan was silent. He knew I was right. In Briar Glen, optics were heavier than iron. "I will take the rides for grocery runs," I conceded. "And maybe if there is an emergency, but I have to do the daily grind myself. I have to show that I can function without the Bell family assets." "I hate this," Evan said. "I hate that he is doing this to you." "Me too," I said. "But he is not going to win." The next morning, I called in late to work, using one of my precious personal days hours to meet with Jordan Pike. I took the bus to the strip mall where Stone Marrow was located. Jordan was wearing the same loosened tie as the last time I saw him. His desk was even messier, covered in stacks of paper that looked like they were about to slide onto the floor. "They took the car," I said. sitting down without waiting to be asked. I assumed they would, Jordan said. He didn't look surprised. He spun his monitor around so I could see it. But while they were busy playing Repo Man, I was busy digging. What did you find? I pulled the registration filings for the Bell Family Mobility Trust. Jordan said, "It is a standard revocable trust. Nothing fancy, but the funding source is interesting. The trust is fed by monthly transfers from another entity." He pointed to a highlighted line on a spreadsheet. Source, BG Heritage Outreach, Inc. Briar Glen Heritage Outreach. I read. "That sounds like a charity." "It is supposed to be," Jordan said. "It is a 501c3 registered right here in town. Mission statement: to preserve the historical integrity of the River Valley and support community welfare." Vague enough to mean anything. "I have seen their logo," I said, remembering a plaque on a park bench. "They sponsor the flower baskets on Main Street." "Right," Jordan said. "They sponsor flower baskets. They sponsor the 4th of July fireworks. But here's the thing. Anna, I pulled their Form 990s. Those are the tax returns nonprofits have to file publicly. For a charity that supposedly supports the community, their overhead is astronomical." He scrolled down. "Look at this. Consulting fees. Administrative retainers. Vehicle lease programs for officers. They are bleeding money into operational costs, and very little is going out in actual grants. And they are paying for my car." "They are funding the trust that bought your car," Jordan corrected. "Which is legally gray. If the car is for a beneficiary, it is a private benefit. A charity isn't supposed to buy cars for the donor's family members unless there is a specific charitable purpose, like if you were an employee." "I am not an employee," I said. "Exactly," Jordan said. "So why is a tax-exempt nonprofit paying for a trust that holds a vehicle for the granddaughter of the board chairman? Harold is the chairman. Harold is the president. Derek is the secretary. And your mother, Elaine, is the treasurer." I felt a wave of nausea. "My mother is the treasurer." "On paper," Jordan said. "She probably just signs what they put in front of her. But Anna, this is your leverage. This is messy. If the IRS looked at this, they would have questions about private inurement. That is when charity money is used to benefit insiders." "So we report them?" I asked. "Not yet," Jordan said. "We need more than just a car. A car could be argued away as transportation for a community liaison or some nonsense they would fabricate retroactively. We need a pattern. We need to know who else is getting paid." He handed me a photocopy of the filing. "Keep this, and keep your eyes open. If they are sloppy with the car, they are sloppy with other things." That evening, I got the invitation. It wasn't a text or an email. It was a handwritten note on heavy cream cardstock. Delivered to my mailbox. "Anna, please come to dinner on Friday. Just family. Roast chicken. We need to clear the air. Harold wants to make peace. Love, Mom." I looked at the handwriting. It was shaky. My mother's hand usually had a perfect, looped script, drilled into her by nuns at boarding school. This looked rushed. "Don't go," Evan said when I told him. "I have to," I said. "If I don't go, I am the estranged, difficult granddaughter. If I go, I am the reasonable one making an effort. Plus, Jordan told me to gather information. I can't gather information from my apartment." I wore my best dress, a simple navy sheath that I used for client meetings. I polished my shoes. I dressed Nora in a clean white onesie and a little bow. I strapped her into the carrier and took a cab to the estate. Spending $40 I had earmarked for the electric bill, I would not arrive sweaty and exhausted. I would arrive looking like I didn't need them. The dinner was held in the formal dining room, under the crystal chandelier that had always terrified me as a child. I was convinced it would fall. Now, sitting under it at 33, I realized the danger wasn't the glass above. It was the people at the table. Harold sat at the head. Elaine was on his right. Derek was on his left. I was placed at the far end, opposite Harold. A vast expanse of polished mahogany between us. "The chicken is dry," Harold announced after the first bite. He looked at Elaine. "You let Maria leave it in too long." "I am sorry, Dad," Elaine whispered, staring at her plate. "It is fine," I said loudly. "It is delicious. Thank you. Mom?" Harold's eyes snapped to me. He smiled. That same thin, skin-deep smile he had worn at the market. "I am glad you could make it, Anna," he said. "We were worried you might have trouble getting here." "The cab service is very reliable," I said pleasantly, "and I enjoy the walk when the weather permits." "Of course," Harold said. He took a sip of red wine. "We wanted to have you over because things have become unnecessarily tense. I want you to know that the car situation was not personal. It was a matter of liability. I understand the legalities." "Grandfather," I said. "Jordan explained the nature of the trust structure to me." Harold paused. The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. "Jordan?" "My paralegal," I said. "At Stone and Marrow." Derek let out a snort. "Stone and Marrow, that strip mall ambulance chaser." "Anna, come on. If you needed legal advice, I could have sent you to the firm's partners." "I prefer independent counsel," I said. Harold set his glass down. The air in the room grew heavy. "You have hired a lawyer," Harold said slowly, "against your family." "I hired a paralegal to explain why my property was seized," I said. "I am not against the family. I am for myself. There is a difference." "Is there?" Harold asked. He leaned forward. "Because in my experience, when you start bringing outsiders into family business, you are inviting destruction." "I didn't bring the outsider," I said. "You sent the tow truck driver. He was an outsider." "Anna," Elaine pleaded, "please, don't provoke him." "I am not provoking," I said. "I am eating dinner." Harold wiped his mouth with a linen napkin. He looked at me with a sudden, chilling pity. "You know, Anna," he said softly, "I have been doing some reading about single parenthood, about the stress it puts on young mothers, the sleeplessness, the financial anxiety. It leads to poor decision-making." "I am making excellent decisions," I said. "Are you?" he asked. "You are spending money on a lawyer you can't afford. You are living in a walk-up apartment. You are refusing help." He looked at Derek, then back at me. "We were discussing hypotheticals with our counsel yesterday," Harold said casually. "About guardianship." The word hung in the air like a blade. "Guardianship," I repeated, "in cases where the custodial parent is overwhelmed," Harold said, "where there is demonstrated instability. Sometimes, the court looks for a kinship placement, a temporary guardian to ensure the child's safety until the mother gets back on her feet." My hands were under the table. I dug my fingernails into my palms until I felt the skin break. He was threatening to take Nora. He wasn't just taking the car. He was going for the baby. "I am not overwhelmed," I said. My voice was low, vibrating with a rage I had never felt before. "And I am not unstable. Nora is healthy. She is happy. She is loved." "Love is not housing, Anna," Harold said. "Love is not transportation. Love is not a credit score." "Stop," I said. "I am just saying," Harold continued, his voice smooth as oil. "If it ever got to that point, if the state ever stepped in because of a neglect report, we would be there. We would step up. We would take her." A neglect report. He was telling me he would file one, or have a concerned neighbor file one. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I am leaving," I said. "Sit down, Anna," Harold commanded. "No," I said. I looked him in the eye. "Here are my boundaries. Grandfather, listen closely, because I will not repeat them. You will not speak to me about legal matters without my representative present. You will not discuss Nora's custody, and you will never, ever use a gift to threaten me again." "Or what?" Derek sneered. "What are you going to do, sue us with your strip mall lawyer?" "Or I will stop protecting your reputation," I said. Harold laughed. "My reputation, Anna. I own this town. You are the one with the reputation, the ungrateful girl who lost her car." "Is that the story?" I asked. "It will be," Harold said. "By tomorrow morning, Everyone at the country club, everyone at the church, everyone at the bank will know that you had to have your vehicle repossessed because you couldn't manage the basic responsibilities of ownership. I will make sure the town knows exactly why you are walking." "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them—" I walked over to the sideboard where I had left the carrier. I strapped Nora in. She was sleeping, oblivious to the fact that the people in this room wanted to own her like a piece of furniture. "Elaine," I said to my mother, "thank you for the chicken." My mother looked at me. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't say a word. She couldn't. She was as much a prisoner as I had been. I walked out of the house. I didn't call a cab. I walked down the driveway, past the gatehouse, and out onto the main road. I walked a mile to the nearest gas station to call a ride, my heart pounding a rhythm of pure adrenaline. He wants to take her. He wants to take her. I needed allies, real ones. The next morning was Thursday, the parents' group. I almost didn't go. I was exhausted, and the fear from the dinner was still humming in my blood. But Mina had said it was practical kindness, and I was starving for anything practical. The group met in the basement of the community center. It wasn't a circle of chairs with people sharing feelings. It was a chaotic room filled with piles of clothes, toys, and boxes of diapers. "Grab a name tag," a woman near the door said. She was wrestling a toddler into a jacket. "Coffee is in the urn. It is terrible, but it is hot." I put on a tag, Anna Nora, and walked into the fray. I found a pile of size 2 clothes and started sorting. A woman next to me was doing the same. She looked tired, wearing a faded hoodie and jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. "Check the seams on the onesies," she said without looking up. "Sometimes the elastic goes on the older stuff." "Thanks," I said. "I am Anna." She looked up. She had sharp, intelligent eyes that assessed me quickly. "Tessa," she said, "you are the one who walked everywhere this week." I flinched. "Is it that obvious?" "Small town," Tessa said. "Plus, I saw you pushing that tank of a stroller up the hill yesterday. Respect. That hill is a beast." She handed me a sleeper with a cute duck print. "Here, this looks like it hasn't been spit up on too many times." "Thanks," I said. "Are you from here?" "Born and raised," Tessa said. Unfortunately, we worked in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again. "I know who you are. By the way," she said quietly. "Bell family, right?" I stiffened. "Yes." "But estranged," Tessa snorted. "Good for you. Run while you can." "Why do you say that?" Tessa looked around to make sure no one was listening. She lowered her voice. "I used to work for them. Well, for one of their initiatives. The Heritage Outreach thing." My head snapped up. "You worked for Briar Glen Heritage Outreach." "For 6 months," Tessa said. "I was supposed to be a grant coordinator. I thought I would be helping people. You know, writing checks to struggling families, historic preservation, that kind of thing. And I never wrote a single check," Tessa said. She folded a blanket aggressively. "The money came in big donations, mostly from out of state, and then it just sat there. Or it got moved around. Consulting fees to people I never met. Retainers for lawyers who never came to the office. Did you ask about it?" "Once," Tessa said. "I asked Derek Bell why we weren't approving any of the applications from the local women's shelter. He told me to stay in my lane. Then they cut my hours until I quit." She looked at me. The numbers didn't add up. "Anna, it was a shell game. Money goes in, looks like charity, comes out clean on the other side for God knows what." "I think it is paying for family expenses," I whispered. "I think it paid for my car." Tessa's eyes widened. "That makes sense. Private inurement. That is illegal as hell." She paused, then leaned closer. "If you are digging," she said, "you should look up your grandmother, Rose. Rose died 5 years ago," I said. "I know," Tessa said, "but when I was cleaning out the files before I left, I found some old binders from when she ran things. Before it was Heritage Outreach. Back then, she had a specific project, a scholarship fund. A scholarship? Not for college. Tessa said. For mothers, a restart fund, cash grants for women leaving bad situations to help them get housing and childcare. It was her passion project. I never heard of that, I said. Exactly, Tessa said, because as soon as she died, the program vanished. The money was absorbed into the General Heritage Fund, and the grants stopped, but the donations kept coming in. She squeezed my arm. Find out what happened to Rose's fund. That is where the bodies are buried. I left the group an hour later with a bag of clothes and a lead. I didn't go home. I went to the public library. The archives were in the basement, a temperature-controlled room that smelled of dust and old paper. I signed in and asked for the microfiche reels for the Briar Glen Gazette from 5 years ago. I scrolled through the obituaries first. I found Rose's, beloved wife, mother, philanthropist. It listed her involvements: the garden club, the historical society, the hospital board, no mention of a restart fund. I went back further. 6 months before she died, I scrolled through the community section. Bake sales, high school football scores, town council minutes. Then I found it, a small article on page C4. Local philanthropist announces new initiative for women. The photo was grainy, but it was unmistakably Rose. She looked frail, already sick, but she was smiling. I read the text, my finger tracing the lines on the illuminated screen. Rose Bell announced today the launch of the Bell Women's Restart Fund, a dedicated endowment designed to provide emergency financial assistance to mothers in Briar Glen seeking independence. We have a duty to help women rebuild, Mrs. Bell stated. This fund is set up to operate in perpetuity, independent of other family trusts, to ensure that no mother in this town is trapped by circumstance. Independent of other family trusts, in perpetuity. I printed the page. The machine whirred and spat out the warm paper. Rose had created a fund specifically to help women like me, women who were trapped, women who needed a restart. And the year she died, Harold had folded it into his slush fund, erased its name, and used the money to buy control over the very people Rose wanted to liberate. I held the paper in my hand. It wasn't just a clipping, it was a map. Harold had threatened to take my daughter because I couldn't provide, but he was sitting on a pile of money that was meant to help me provide. He wasn't just a controller, he was a usurper. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. Let him tell the town I lost my car. I was going to tell the town what he did with his wife's legacy. The fluorescent lights in the back office of Stone Marrow hummed with a low, insect-like buzz that seemed to vibrate right against my skull. Jordan Pike had cleared a space on his desk, pushing aside stacks of unrelated probate files to lay out the timeline we had constructed. It looked like a battle map, drawn in Sharpie and sticky notes. Here is the moment of impact, Jordan said, tapping a yellow square dated 5 years ago. September, Rose Bell passes away, the town mourns, the obituaries run. The funeral is, by all accounts, a state affair. I remember, I said, staring at the date. I was 28. I sat in the front row. Harold didn't cry once. October, Jordan continued, sliding his finger to the right. 1 month later, the Bell Women's Restart Fund, Rose's independent project, goes quiet. No new grants issued, no press releases. And then, December, Jordan said, year-end filings. The Restart Fund is formally dissolved as a separate entity, and its assets, approximately $250,000, are transferred to Briar Glen Heritage Outreach for, quote, administrative consolidation and efficiency, end quote. I looked at the number, $250,000. That money was for women leaving abusive marriages, I said, my voice tight. It was for deposits on apartments. It was for legal fees. Rose told me about it once. She said, Anna, money is the only thing that buys a woman out of hell. Well, now it is buying flower baskets, Jordan said grimly, and consulting fees. He pulled up a digital document on his monitor. It was a meeting minute log from the Heritage Outreach Board, dated that same December. Motion to absorb assets. Proposed by Harold Bell. Reason to streamline family philanthropic efforts and reduce overhead. Vote unanimous. Who voted? I asked. Harold, Derek, and Elaine. Jordan said. My mother. She had voted to erase Rose's legacy. I need to see the original charter, I said. The one Rose wrote. If she set it up to be independent, how could they just absorb it? That is the question, Jordan said. We need the meeting minutes from before she died, the ones where she established the fund. If those minutes show she explicitly forbade a merger, then Harold committed a breach of fiduciary duty by ignoring donor intent, even if the donor was his wife. I spent the next 2 afternoons in the basement of the public library. The air was cool and smelled of old paper and dust, a scent that felt like safety compared to the humid heat outside. I waded through box after box of Historical Society records, searching for the early days of the Heritage Outreach Program. I found it on a Wednesday, buried in a folder mislabeled Garden Club 2018. It was a handwritten set of minutes from a board meeting held in Rose's sunroom, 6 months before she died. Her handwriting was shaky, the cancer was already taking its toll, but the words were forceful. Agenda Item 4. The Restart Fund. Rosebell moves that the fund be established as an irrevocable trust, separate from the main Bell estate holdings. Rationale. To ensure that the funds are accessible to women in crisis, without the need for approval from the main family council. We must remove the barrier of reputation management from the act of giving. Discussion, Harold Bell expresses concern about oversight, suggests keeping it under the main umbrella. Rose Bell response. Absolutely not. If I die, I do not want this money subject to the whims of the men in this family. It stands alone, or I do not sign the initial check. Resolution fund established independently. Board agrees. I took a picture of the page with my phone, my hands shaking. She had known. She had looked at her husband, looked at the future, and known exactly what he would do. She had tried to build a wall around that money, and the moment she was in the ground, he had bulldozed it. When I walked out of the library, the sun was blinding. I felt a vibration in my pocket. It was my mother. Anna, she said when I answered. She sounded breathless, panic fluttering in her throat like a trapped bird. Where are you? I am downtown, I said. Why? I need to see you, she said. Please, I am at the coffee shop near your office, the one with the green awning. I hesitated. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to look at the woman who had voted yes to erasing Rose's work. But there was something in her voice, a jagged edge of fear that made me turn around. Elaine was sitting in the back corner of the cafe, staring into a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She looked older than she had at the dinner. Her makeup was perfect, but there were lines around her mouth that foundation couldn't hide. You look tired, she said as I sat down. I am walking everywhere, I said. It keeps you fit, she flinched. Anna, please, I didn't come here to fight. I came to warn you. Warn me about what? Is he going to tow my stroller next? He knows you are digging, she whispered, leaning across the table. Derek told him you were at the library. The librarian is Mrs. Gable's sister, Anna. You have to stop. You are poking a bear with a stick. I am not poking a bear, I said. I am looking for the truth. I found Rose's meeting minutes. Mom, I saw where she said the fund had to be independent, and I saw where you voted to dissolve it. Elaine's face went pale. She looked down at her hands, twisting the large diamond ring on her finger. You don't understand, she said softly. Help me understand. I said, why did you do it? Why did you let him take that money? Because I had to, she said. Her voice cracked. Anna, do you think I own my house? I paused. The house on Ridge Road. Of course. Dad left it to you in the divorce settlement. Dad didn't have anything to leave, she said. Harold bought out Dad's share of the business to make him go away quietly. The house. The deed is in the trust. The same trust that held your car. I stared at her. You have lived there for 20 years. As a tenant, she said. A tenant at will. Harold pays the property taxes. Harold pays the maintenance. And every month, I receive a household stipend from the trust to cover groceries and utilities. If I vote against him, if I refuse to sign the papers Derek puts in front of me, the stipend stops. The house goes back to the estate. She looked up at me, and I saw the terror in her eyes. It wasn't the terror of a child. It was the terror of a woman who had realized too late that her cage was made of gold, but it was still a cage. He told me that if I didn't vote for the merger, he would reevaluate my living situation. She said, I was 55, Anna. I had no career. I had no savings. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to protect Rose's wish, I said, but the anger was draining out of me, replaced by a cold, heavy realization. It wasn't just me, it was systemic. Harold Bell didn't just control the money, he controlled the oxygen. He had built a solar system where every single person had to orbit him or freeze to death. My mother wasn't his partner. She was his hostage. He does this to everyone, I said. The housing stipend, the car, the consulting fees for Derek. He makes us all dependent so we can't speak. That is why you have to stop, Elaine pleaded. He will crush you. Anna, he will take Nora. He has lawyers who can drag a custody case out for years. He will bleed you dry until you are begging him to let you come home. He can't bleed me dry, I said, standing up, because I am already empty, and that is the one thing he didn't count on. What are you going to do? I am going to finish what Rose started. I said. I left her there, staring into her cold tea. I walked back to the office, my mind racing. I needed more than just the minutes. I needed proof of where the money went. I called Jordan. We need to look at Derek, I said. You mentioned he gets fees. I am looking at them right now, Jordan said. It is impressive, in a criminal sort of way. Derek Bell is listed as an operations consultant for Briar Glen Heritage Outreach. He bills the nonprofit $84,000 a year. And what does he do? According to the invoices attached to the filings, strategic oversight, community liaison work. But here's the kicker. Anna, the dates on his invoices match the dates he is usually posting Instagram photos from Cabo or Aspen. So he is looting the charity, I said. He is drawing a salary from a nonprofit that is supposed to be helping the community, while the actual charitable giving for the last fiscal year was, let me check, $4,000 to the local animal shelter, $84,000 for Derek, $4,000 for the dogs, and $0 for the mothers, I said. That is the math, Jordan agreed. And since Derek is an officer of the nonprofit, receiving excessive compensation is a direct violation of IRS regulations. It is private inurement. If we can prove he did no actual work, the nonprofit loses its status, and the officers Harold and Derek become personally liable for the taxes. And the reputational damage? Catastrophic, Jordan said. If the town finds out Harold Bell is using charity money to pay for his grandson's ski trips while denying grants to struggling locals, he is finished. We have the weapon, I said. Now we just need the opportunity to fire it. The opportunity arrived 2 days later in the form of a heavy cream-colored envelope delivered to my desk at work. It was an invitation to the Bellwood Winter Gala. The gala was the event of the season. $500 a plate, black tie. It was where Harold held court, where the mayor kissed his ring, where the generosity of the Bell family was paraded on stage. There was a handwritten note clipped to the RSVP card. Anna, I think it is time for a fresh start. A new car has been ordered, a Lexus SUV, fully paid. Title in your name upon delivery. No trusts, no strings, just a gift for my granddaughter. All I ask is that you join us on Saturday. We will be announcing a new transportation initiative for the town. It would mean a lot to have you by my side. Grandfather. I read the note twice. No trusts, no strings. He was terrified. He sensed I was getting close. Or maybe he just realized the repo stunt had backfired and made him look petty. He was trying to buy my silence with a Lexus. I called Jordan. He invited me to the gala, I said. He is offering a car, a real one this time. He wants you on that stage, Jordan said. He wants to show the town that the family is united, that the rumors about the repossession were just a misunderstanding. If I go, I am validating him, I said. I am telling the town he is the good guy. Oh, Jordan said, his voice dropping. You are walking into the lion's den with a recording device. If he is announcing a transportation initiative, he is going to be feeling confident, arrogant. If we can get him or Derek to admit on tape that the charity money is a personal piggy bank, or that the car was a leverage tool, we catch them, I said. Missouri is a one-party consent state, Jordan reminded me. As long as you are part of the conversation, you can record it. You don't need their permission. I will go, I said, but I'm not going for the car. I spent the next day preparing. I went to a thrift store 2 towns over so no one would see me and bought a floor-length black dress. It was simple, severe, almost like armor. I texted Evan, I need a favor. Can you watch Nora on Saturday night? I have to go to the gala. He called me immediately. The gala, Anna. Are you crazy? After what he did. I have to go. Evan, it is part of the plan. What plan? I can't tell you the details yet, but I need to know she is safe. I need to know she is nowhere near that house. I will watch her, Evan said. I will keep her at my place. I will order pizza and we will watch cartoons. She will be safe. Thank you, I said, for not asking me to stop. I learned my lesson, he said gently. You are not the damsel in this story. Anna, I see that now. Saturday night arrived with a cold snap. The air was crisp, the sky a bruised purple. I took a rideshare to the Bellwood Country Club. The phone in my clutch purse already recording. The ballroom was a sea of velvet and diamonds. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roast beef. I spotted Harold near the ice sculpture, holding court. When he saw me, his face lit up with a triumphant smile. Anna, he called out, opening his arms. You came. He embraced me. He smelled of scotch and Old Spice. It took everything I had not to recoil. Hello, grandfather, I said. You look stunning, he said. Sensible dress, very elegant. He leaned in close. The Lexus is parked out front with a red bow. Keys are in my pocket. We will do the transfer tomorrow morning. Thank you, I said flatly. Just smile, he whispered, his grip on my shoulder tightening slightly. Tonight is about family. We are going to make a big announcement, the Bell Mobility Grant. We are going to give away 5 used cars to needy families. It will make the papers. Using the Heritage Outreach money, I asked innocently. It is all from the same pot, my dear, he said, winking. Money is water. It flows where you dig the trench. He moved away to greet the mayor. I scanned the room. I needed Derek. Harold was too careful to say the quiet part out loud. But Derek was weak. Derek was arrogant. I found him near the bar, nursing a martini. He looked bored. Well, look who walked in, Derek sneered. I thought you were boycotting us. Harold made me an offer, I said, leaning against the bar. I made sure my purse was angled toward him. Alexis, hard to say no to that when you are taking the bus. Grandpa doesn't lose, Derek said, taking a sip. I told you that. He always buys his way out. I guess, I said, playing the defeated victim. But I still don't get why you guys were so aggressive with the repo. I mean, towing it from work that felt personal. Derek laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. Oh, come on. Anna, it wasn't about the car. The car is a rounding error in the trust. Then what was it about? It was a pressure point, Derek said, swirling his olive. Grandpa said you were getting too uppity. You needed a reminder of who actually pays for the gas in your tank. We had to squeeze you a little to get you back in line. And look, he gestured to the room. It worked. Here you are. So the insurance lapse, the address change, that was all you, I asked, keeping my voice steady. Technically, it was administrative optimization. Derek smirked. But yeah, I redirected the mail. It is amazing how fast someone's life falls apart when they miss a few letters. I felt a cold thrill shoot through me. I had it. Pressure point. Redirected the mail. He had just confessed to mail fraud and coercion. "You are smart, Derek," I said. "I underestimated you." "Everyone does," he said, preening. "That is why I get the consulting fees. 80 grand a year to sign a few forms, best gig in town." "Does the board know you don't do any work for it?" "The board is Mom and Grandpa." Derek laughed. "Who are they going to tell the IRS?" He laughed again, raising his glass in a mock toast. "Welcome back to the fold, cousin. Try not to mess it up this time." I walked away. My knees were shaking, but I felt light. I had the recording. I had the confession. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the scared girl from the grocery store. She was a hunter. I checked my phone. I had a text from Jordan. "Call me, now." I stepped into a stall and dialed. "Did you get it?" Jordan asked. "I got everything," I whispered. Derek admitted to the mail fraud. He admitted the car was a pressure point. He admitted the consulting fees are for doing nothing. "Good," Jordan said, "because I just got something too, and it changes the whole game." "What is it?" "I got an email 10 minutes ago from an encrypted address," Jordan said. "It is from the accountant who handled Rose's estate, the one who retired suddenly right after she died." "What did he say?" "He said he has been watching the court filings. He saw that someone was finally looking into the trust. Anna. He attached a PDF." "A PDF of what?" "A scanned copy of a sealed letter Rose wrote 3 days before she died, and a beneficiary addendum to the Restart Fund." "What does it say?" "It says that in the event of her death, if the fund is dissolved or merged into another entity, the assets do not revert to the estate. They trigger a constructive trust clause." "English, Jordan?" "It means if Harold tampered with the fund, the money doesn't belong to the charity anymore. It legally bypasses the trust entirely and goes directly to a named successor beneficiary to restore the program." I held my breath. "Who is the successor beneficiary?" "You," Jordan said. "It is you, Anna. You are the legal owner of the assets. Harold didn't just steal from a charity, he stole from you." I leaned my head against the cool metal of the stall wall. Rose hadn't just left money, she had left a failsafe. She had made me the guardian of her legacy, and Harold had buried the paperwork to keep the power for himself. "But there is a catch," Jordan said. "There is always a catch. The clause has a statute of limitations. The claim must be filed within 5 years of the date of death." I froze. "She died 5 years ago in September. It is July." "We have 2 months," Jordan said. "If we don't file the claim and compel the audit before September 15th, the clause expires and the money stays with Harold forever." "He knows," I whispered. "That is why he is buying me the car. That is why he wants me here tonight. He's running out the clock. He wants to keep me happy and quiet for just 2 more months." "Exactly," Jordan said. "He is stalling. Anna, get out of there. We need to file on Monday morning. We are going to drop a nuclear bomb on his transportation initiative." I hung up. I walked out of the bathroom. I walked back into the ballroom. Harold was on the stage now, tapping the microphone. The room went silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harold boomed, his voice warm and fatherly, "tonight is a celebration of family, of heritage, and of the future." He scanned the crowd, looking for me. He wanted me to come up. He wanted me to smile. He wanted me to help him run out the clock. I caught his eye. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I turned my back on him and walked out the double doors. I heard him falter on the microphone, just a momentary stumble as he watched me leave. He knew. In that moment, he knew the Lexus hadn't worked. I walked out into the night air. The valet ran to get a car I didn't have. "I am walking," I told him. I walked down the long driveway of the country club, the gravel crunching under my heels. I wasn't walking because I was poor. I wasn't walking because I was broken. I was walking because I was coming for everything they owed me. Monday morning broke over Briar Glen with a gray, suffocating humidity that turned the air into soup. I sat in Jordan Pike's office, the air conditioner rattling in the window, staring at a document that felt heavier than the desk it rested on. It was a copy of Rose Bell's sealed letter. Jordan had obtained it through a relentless series of calls to the retired accountant, a man named Mr. Henderson, who had apparently been nursing a guilty conscience for 5 years. Henderson had kept a digital scan of the original execution documents, the ones Harold had ordered him to archive and forget. "Read the 3rd paragraph," Jordan said, his voice low. He looked tired, his eyes rimmed with red, but there was a vibration of energy coming off him, the thrill of a hunter who has finally found the trail. I looked at the screen. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Rose's sharp, angular script, the ink slightly faded in the scan. "To my executors, it is my greatest fear that the specific intent of the Restart Fund will be eroded by the broader interests of the Bell Family Trust. I know my husband. He views charity as a transaction, and he views independence as a threat. Therefore, I am attaching this beneficiary addendum. If, at any point, the Bell Women's Restart Fund is dissolved, merged, or fails to issue grants for a period of 12 consecutive months, the assets shall not revert to the general estate. Instead, a constructive trust shall be triggered immediately. The assets are to pass directly to my granddaughter, Anna Bell, who I trust to restore the fund to its original purpose. She knows what it means to need a door to walk through." I felt a lump form in my throat, hard and painful. She had known, even back then, when I was 28 and still pretending everything was fine with Evan. She had seen something in me. She had known I would need a door. "She named me," I whispered. "She didn't trust Harold. She trusted me." "She did more than name you," Jordan said. "She created a legal bypass. A constructive trust is a remedy used to prevent unjust enrichment. Basically, she is saying that if Harold touched that money, it legally stopped being his the second he touched it. It became yours. So the money is mine. Technically, it is yours to manage for the charity," Jordan corrected. "But yes, the control of the $250,000 and likely the interest it has accrued belongs to you. Harold has been spending your money to buy flower baskets and pay Derek's consulting fees." He scrolled down to the bottom of the page. "But here's the problem. Read the condition." I squinted at the fine print at the bottom. "This conditional bequest is valid for a period of 5 years from the date of my death. The named beneficiary must initiate a request for audit and transfer within this window to activate the clause." The room went silent. The rattling air conditioner seemed to get louder. 5 years, I said. My heart gave a hard, sick thump. "She died on September 15th, 5 years ago. Today is July 20th, Jordan said. "We have less than 2 months, I said. "But wait, if I didn't know about the letter, if I didn't know I was the beneficiary, how could I file?" "That is what I thought at first," Jordan said. "I thought we were dead in the water. I thought Harold had successfully run out the clock by hiding the will. If September 15th passes and we haven't secured a judgment, the clause expires. The money stays with the Heritage Outreach forever." He stood up and walked to the whiteboard, uncapping a red marker. "But then I looked at the probate code. Section 404, the statute of limitations for a beneficiary claim begins when the cause of action accrues." "Which was when she died," I said, feeling the hope drain out of me. "No," Jordan said, grinning fiercely. "The cause of action accrues when the will is presented to the probate court. Harold filed the main will. He never filed the addendum. He suppressed it." He circled the word suppressed on the board. "By hiding the letter, he told the statute, the clock doesn't start ticking until the beneficiary is made aware of the claim. Since he never told you, the 5-year window hasn't even started yet." I stared at him. "Are you sure?" "I am sure," Jordan said. "It is fraud. Anna, fraudulent concealment. It blows the statute of limitations wide open. We don't just have 2 months, we have all the time in the world. But we aren't going to wait. We are going to file today. What are we filing? A petition to compel disclosure and a request for independent audit, Jordan said. We are going to attach the accountant's email and the scanned letter. We are asking the court to freeze the assets of Briar Glen Heritage Outreach and the Bell Family Mobility Trust immediately, pending an investigation into mismanagement and theft. When we file this, I said, it becomes public record. Yes, Jordan said. By this afternoon, the clerk will upload it. By tomorrow morning, the Gazette will have it. Harold won't be able to hide behind rumors anymore. The town will know he stole from his dead wife to control his granddaughter. Do it, I said. I watched him hit the submit button on the court's electronic filing system. It was such a small action, a click of a mouse to dismantle an empire. I walked out of the office into the blinding sun. I felt lighter, but also exposed. I knew what was coming. Harold Bell was not a man who went down quietly. The retaliation began 48 hours later. It didn't start with a lawsuit. It started, as everything in Briar Glen did, with a whisper that turned into a scream on the internet. I was at work, trying to focus on a logo design for a landscaping company, when my phone started buzzing incessantly. It wasn't texts. It was notifications from the Briar Glen Community Buzz group. I hadn't looked at the group since the car incident, but the sheer volume of alerts forced me to open the app. A new post had been pinned to the top. It was from an anonymous account named Concerned Neighbor. It is heartbreaking to see what is happening in our town. We all know a certain young mother who has been struggling lately. Now we hear she is suing her own family, the same family that has supported this town for generations. It is sad when mental instability leads to lashing out. Sources say she is refusing medical help and using her innocent baby as a shield in a legal battle she can't afford, praying for the child's safety. There were 200 comments. I saw her walking on the highway with the stroller. She looked manic. I heard she got fired from her last job. The family has tried everything to help her. Some people just want to be victims. Someone should call CPS. If she is unstable, that baby isn't safe. I felt the blood drain from my face. They were using the unstable narrative Harold had planted. They were weaponizing my walk to work, my lack of a car, my refusal to take their money. Every struggle I had overcome was being repainted as a symptom of madness. Anna. I looked up. Sarah was standing at my desk. She looked pale. You need to see this, she said, holding up her tablet. It is on the Gazette's online forum too. I see it, I said, my voice steady. It is Harold. He is trying to discredit me before the audit news breaks. They are saying really awful things. Anna, Sarah said softly, about your fitness, about Nora. I know, I said. Do you want to respond? Sarah asked. The official Lark Loom account could post something. We could say you are a model employee. We could shut this down. No, I said immediately. Do not engage. That is what he wants. He wants a public fight. He wants me to get on Facebook and scream and cry and defend myself so I look exactly as hysterical as he says I am. I turned my phone face down on the desk. Silence is the only thing that scares him, I said. I am not going to fight him in the comment section. I am going to fight him in court, but the silence was hard. Walking down the street that evening to pick up Nora, I felt eyes on me. A woman in a minivan slowed down as she passed me, staring openly. The cashier at the pharmacy where I bought diapers avoided my gaze. I was a pariah. I was the crazy Bell girl who was biting the hand that fed her. I got home and locked the door. I pulled the shades down. I picked up Nora and held her tight, burying my face in her soft, milk-scented neck. They are lying, I whispered to her. We are okay. We are safe. But were we? A knock at the door made me jump. I froze. Was it CPS? Was it the police? Anna, it is me, Mina. I exhaled and opened the door. Mina Rowe was standing there, holding a pizza box and a thick 3-ring binder. Behind her was Tessa Mallory, carrying a laptop case. We come bearing gifts, Mina said, pushing past me into the apartment. pepperoni, and a defense strategy. What is all this? I asked, closing the door. We saw the posts, Tessa said, setting her laptop on the kitchen table. Classic Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Harold is scared, so he is trying to paint you as the aggressor. He is calling me unstable, I said. He is hinting that I am a danger to Nora. Which is why we are here, Mina said, slamming the binder down on the table. We are building the receipts. Receipts, proof of life, Mina said. Proof of stability. We are not going to argue with trolls on Facebook. We are going to build a paper trail so thick that if anyone from social services ever knocks on this door, you can bury them in evidence. She opened the binder. It was divided into tabs. Tab 1, medical care. I called the pediatrician's office, Tessa said. I pretended to be you, sorry. Identity theft for a good cause and asked for a printout of every appointment attended. You have never missed a checkup. You are 100% compliant with vaccinations. We have the records. Tab 2. Employment. Sarah wrote a letter, Mina said. It is dated today. It outlines your attendance, your project completion rates, and your exceptional professional demeanor. It is signed and notarized. Tab 3. Housing. I pulled your rent ledger, Tessa said. Paid on time, every month, no noise complaints, no lease violations. Tab 4. Character witnesses. We have statements, Mina said. From the daycare director, from your neighbor Mrs. Gable, from the librarian. They all say the same thing. You are a devoted, attentive, exhausted but completely capable mother. I looked at the binder. It was a tangible reconstruction of my sanity. Why are you doing this? I asked, tears finally pricking my eyes. You barely know me. Because he did it to me too, Tessa said quietly. Not the public shaming, but the gaslighting. The feeling that you are crazy for thinking the math doesn't add up. I let him win because I was alone. You are not alone. Plus, Mina added, grabbing a slice of pizza, I really hate bullies, and Harold Bell is the biggest bully in the zip code. We spent the night organizing the files. Every time a new nasty comment popped up on the forum, we added a new document to the binder. It felt like building a fortress, brick by brick. The next evening, I received a different kind of visitor. It was raining. A slow, miserable drizzle that cooled the air but left everything damp. I heard a soft, hesitant tapping at my door. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother. She was wearing a trench coat with the collar turned up and a silk scarf over her head. She looked like she was trying to be invisible. I opened the door. Mom, can I come in? She whispered. Just for a minute. He thinks I'm at the grocery store. I stepped back. She walked in, dripping water onto the entryway mat. She didn't take off her coat. She stood there, clutching her purse to her chest. I can't stay, she said. Derek is tracking my phone. I left it in the car. Mom, you are shaking, I said. Do you want some tea? No, she said. I brought you something. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. It was thick, stuffed with papers. She held it out to me, her hand trembling. I found these, she said, in the desk in the study, in the drawer where he keeps the things he doesn't want anyone to see. I took the folder. I opened it. The first item was a letter from the DMV, dated 6 months ago, vehicle registration renewal notice, addressed to Annabelle. The second item was an insurance notice, policy cancellation warning, dated 2 months ago, addressed to Annabelle. The third was a bank statement, overdraft notice. I flipped through them. There were dozens of letters, all of them addressed to me, all of them opened, all of them stamped with a date of receipt by the estate. He intercepted them, I said. The anger was cold and hard in my stomach. He didn't just change the address. He physically took the mail. He told me to put them in the drawer, Elaine said, her voice barely a whisper. He said he was handling it. He said you were overwhelmed and he was going to take care of the bills. He told me he was protecting you. Did you believe him? I asked. Elaine looked at me. Her eyes were swimming with tears. I wanted to. It is easier to believe him than to admit what he is. She reached out and touched my arm. Her fingers were ice cold. I saw the post, she said. The one about you being unstable. I know he wrote it, or he made Derek write it. Probably Derek, I said. Harold doesn't know how to use emojis. It is cruel, Elaine said. It is evil. You are a good mother, Anna. You are better than I ever was. You were a good mother, Mom, I said. You just got stuck. I am still stuck, she said. But I couldn't let him keep these. Not when he is using them to say you are irresponsible. You didn't lose the car because you forgot to pay. You lost it because he stole the bill. This is a federal crime, I said, holding up the folder. Tampering with mail. Theft. I know, she said. She looked terrified. If he finds out I gave them to you. He won't find out, I said. I will say, I got copies from the companies. I will protect you. I don't deserve protection, she said. I let him do this to you for years. I let him buy my silence with a townhouse and a grocery allowance. She turned to the door. I have to go, before he notices the car hasn't moved. Mom, I said. She stopped, her hand on the knob. Thank you, I said. She didn't turn around. She just nodded. A small, jerky motion, and slipped out into the rain. I looked at the folder. It wasn't just evidence. It was a confession. My mother had finally chosen a side. She hadn't broken free, she was still going back to the cage, but she had passed a key through the bars. Saturday approached, the night of the gala. I had the recording of Derek. I had the sealed letter from Rose. I had the binder of stability from Mina. And now, I had the stolen mail from Elaine. I wasn't going to the gala to make a scene. I wasn't going to flip tables or scream at Harold in front of the mayor. That was what unstable Anna would do. I was going to the gala to be seen. I needed the town to see me calm, collected, and unafraid. I needed to stand in the same room as the man who was trying to destroy me and show him that I was still standing. I spent the afternoon preparing. I bathed Nora and took her to Evan's apartment. You look... Evan struggled for the word. Formidable. Good, I said. That is the look I'm going for. Are you sure about this? He asked. You don't have to go. You have filed the motion. You can let the lawyers handle it. If I don't go, it looks like I'm hiding, I said. It looks like the anonymous posts are right. I have to show my face. I have to show them I have nothing to be ashamed of. I kissed Nora goodbye. I will be back before she wakes up. I went home to dress. I put on the black dress I had bought at the thrift store. I pulled my hair back into a tight, severe bun. No loose strands, no chaos. I was putting on my earrings, simple pearl studs that had been Rose's when a courier knocked at the door. It was 6:00 p.m. The gala started at 7:00. I signed for the envelope. It was heavy, linen paper, with the logo of the most expensive law firm in St. Louis embossed in gold on the corner. Sterling Hart. I opened it. Ms. Bell. We represent Mr. Harold Bell and the Bell Family Trust. It has come to our attention that you have filed a frivolous and defamatory petition regarding the Briar Glen Heritage Outreach. Be advised that the Trust views this action as a malicious attack on the family's charitable reputation. Furthermore, we are in possession of sworn affidavits regarding your recent erratic behavior, financial insolvency, and public outbursts. If you proceed with the audit request, the family intends to file an immediate counterclaim seeking emergency temporary custody of the minor child, Nora Bell. Citing parental unfitness and lack of stable housing, we are prepared to litigate this matter to the fullest extent of the law. However, if you withdraw your petition with prejudice within 24 hours, the family is prepared to offer a settlement package that includes full ownership of the vehicle and a structured trust for the child's education. Govern yourself accordingly. I stared at the letter. The room seemed to tilt. They weren't just threatening a lawsuit. They were threatening to take her. Emergency temporary custody. parental unfitness. They would drag me into court. They would use the tow truck incident. They would use the anonymous posts. They would use the fact that I lived in a rental and took the bus. They would bury me in legal fees I couldn't pay. Govern yourself accordingly, I read aloud. The words tasted like metal. I looked at the clock. 6:15 p.m. Harold was betting on my fear. He knew that for any mother, the threat of losing her child was the nuclear option. He expected me to fold. He expected me to call Jordan right now, sobbing, and tell him to withdraw the petition. He expected me to take the settlement, take the car, and crawl back into the hole he had dug for me. My hands were shaking. I put the letter down on the table, next to the binder Mina had made, next to the folder Elaine had brought. I looked at the empty space where Nora's carrier usually sat. If I folded now, I would keep Nora, but I would lose her future. She would grow up in a world where Harold Bell owned the sky. She would grow up watching her mother apologize for existing. She would eventually become Elaine Scared, silent and complicit. I touched the pearls in my ears. Rose's pearls. Rose had fought to keep the fund independent because she knew this day would come. She knew Harold would use every weapon he had. I picked up my phone. I dialed Jordan. "I just got a letter," I said. "From Sterling and Hart." "The custody threat?" Jordan asked. He didn't sound surprised. "I got a copy too." "Can they do it?" I asked. "Can they take her?" "They can try," Jordan said. "They can file the motion. They can make your life hell for a few weeks. But Anna, look at what you have. You have proof of mail theft. You have proof of embezzlement. You have proof of the constructively held trust. If they sue you for custody, all of that evidence becomes admissible in family court to prove their unfitness. So they are bluffing. They are terrified," Jordan said. "This is the last gasp of a dying dragon. He is breathing fire because he knows you have the spear." "I am not withdrawing," I said. "Good," Jordan said. "Then I will draft a response to Sterling and Hart, attaching the mail theft evidence. Let's see how eager they are to litigate when their client is facing federal charges." Jordan: "Yeah, I am going to the gala." "I know," he said. "Give him hell, or rather, give him silence." I hung up. I picked up my clutch. I took one last look at the threatening letter. Then I turned it over and wrote on the back of the expensive linen paper, "No." I left it on the table. I walked out the door, down the stairs, and into the night. I didn't call a cab. I walked to the corner and waited for the bus that would take me to the edge of the country club. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a hysterical girl. I was the beneficiary of restoration, and I was going to collect. The ballroom of the Bellwood Country Club was a masterclass in performative wealth. The chandeliers, massive cascading teardrops of crystal, caught the light and shattered it into 1,000 prisms that danced across the faces of the town's elite. I stood near the back, by the velvet ropes that separated the bar from the main floor, watching the spectacle. I was invisible in my black thrift store dress, a dark smudge against the sea of sequins and pastel chiffon. Harold Bell stood on the raised stage, bathed in the warm glow of a spotlight. He looked every inch the benevolent patriarch. His tuxedo was tailored to perfection, hiding the slight hunch of his shoulders that had developed over the last year. He held a microphone in one hand and a glass of champagne in the other. "Family," Harold said, his voice rich and resonating through the high-quality sound system. "It is a word we throw around easily, but true family is about sacrifice. It is about lifting each other up when the road gets hard." He paused for effect. The crowd murmured their agreement. I saw the mayor nodding vigorously in the front row. "Recently," Harold continued, his eyes scanning the room, searching for me, "I have been inspired by the struggles of the younger generation. My own granddaughter, Anna, has reminded me of the challenges young mothers face in today's economy. She has shown me that transportation is not just a luxury, it is a lifeline." My stomach turned over. He was doing it. He was taking the story of him repossessing my car and twisting it into a parable about his own empathy. He was rewriting my humiliation into his press release. "That is why," Harold announced, his voice swelling. I am proud to launch the Bell Mobility Grant, a new initiative funded by the Briar Glen Heritage Outreach to provide reliable vehicles to deserving families who just need a little help to get back on their feet. Applause broke out. It was thunderous. People were standing up, clapping for the man who had stolen his wife's legacy to pay for his grandson's ski trips. And, Harold shouted over the applause, I want to dedicate this first grant to Anna. She is here tonight. Anna, come up here. The spotlight swung. It swept across the room, searching. I didn't hide. I stepped out from the shadows of the pillar and let the light hit me. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I stood perfectly still, my hands clasped in front of me, clutching the small black purse that held my phone, which was currently recording every word. The applause faltered slightly as people saw my expression. I wasn't the grateful, teary-eyed recipient he wanted. I looked like a ghost at a wedding. Come on up, Anna, Harold encouraged, gesturing broadly. Don't be shy. I started walking. I walked down the center aisle, the crowd parting for me. I could hear the whispers starting, the rustle of silk as people leaned in to gossip. I walked up the stairs to the stage. I stood next to him. The heat from the stage lights was intense. Harold reached out to put his arm around me. I took a half step back, just enough to make his hand drop to his side. Thank you, grandfather, I said. My voice wasn't amplified, but in the sudden silence of the room, it carried. Harold tried to hand me the microphone, expecting a thank you speech. I took it. I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw Mrs. Gable. I saw the bank manager. I saw the people who had read the anonymous posts calling me unstable. This grant sounds wonderful, I said into the mic. My voice was steady. But before we celebrate, I have just one question regarding the funding. Harold's smile froze. He stepped closer, his hand gripping my elbow hard. Anna, he hissed through his teeth. Not now. I pulled my arm away. You mentioned the Heritage Outreach is funding this, I said, addressing the room. And you mentioned family values. So I would like to ask for one item of proof tonight. Can you show us proof that the car you gave me was ever actually titled in my name? And can you show us proof that the nonprofit has funded a single grant since Rose Bell died 5 years ago? The silence in the room was absolute. It was a vacuum. Harold laughed. It was a loud, forced sound that bounced awkwardly off the walls. Oh, Anna, he said, shaking his head. Always the dramatist. This is hardly the place for paperwork. We are here to celebrate. Actually, a voice called out from the floor, this is exactly the place. Jordan Pike stepped out from the side entrance. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing his rumpled suit, looking like a detective who had just walked off a crime scene. He held a thick stack of documents in his hand. Jordan Pike, Harold sneered, looking down from the stage. I see you found a suit. Are you lost? I am serving notice, Jordan said, walking up to the edge of the stage. On behalf of my client, Anna Bell, he slapped the folder onto the edge of the stage. This is a petition to compel disclosure, Jordan announced, his voice projecting clearly, and a request for independent audit of the Briar Glen Heritage Outreach. We are also filing a formal acknowledgement of the sealed beneficiary addendum left by Rose Bell, which names Anna Bell as the rightful owner of the Restart Fund assets. A gasp went through the room. The name Rose Bell was sacred in this town. Suggesting Harold had tampered with her will was like suggesting he had burned down the church. This is absurd, Harold sputtered. He looked at his security guards, who were standing uncertainly by the doors. Get him out of here. He is trespassing. I am not trespassing, Jordan said. I am a witness, and I brought another one. The side door opened again. A small, elderly man walked in. He wore a gray suit that was 2 sizes too big for him. He clutched a briefcase to his chest like a shield. It was Mr. Henderson, the retired accountant. Harold's face went the color of ash. He took a step back, nearly tripping over the microphone stand. Arthur, Harold whispered, what are you doing? Mr. Henderson didn't look at the crowd. He looked straight at Harold. I am sorry, Harold. Mr. Henderson said, His voice was thin but audible. I couldn't sleep anymore. Jordan handed Mr. Henderson a microphone that had been set up for the band. "Mr. Henderson," Jordan said, "can you confirm for the record the status of the Bell Women's Restart Fund?" "It was dissolved," Mr. Henderson said, his voice trembling. "Against the donors' written instructions, the assets were moved to the general operating account of the Heritage Outreach." "And the filings?" Jordan asked. "Do the tax returns match the internal ledgers?" "No," Mr. Henderson said. "Documents were withheld. The donations reported to the IRS do not match the expenditures. The money was used for non-charitable purposes." The room erupted. It wasn't applause this time. It was the sound of 500 people realizing they had been played. The murmur turned into a roar of conversation. Harold grabbed the microphone from my hand. "Lies," he shouted. The feedback squealed, piercing everyone's ears. "This is a setup. This man is senile. My granddaughter is unstable. She has manipulated this poor old man." He pointed a shaking finger at me. "You are ungrateful. I gave you everything. I gave you a car. I gave you a name." "You gave me a loan," I said calmly, my voice cutting through his panic. "And you charged me my freedom as interest." I turned and walked off the stage. I didn't run. I walked down the stairs. The crowd parted for me again. But this time, they weren't looking at me with judgment. They were looking at me with shock. I made it to the edge of the room when a hand grabbed my arm and yanked me into the service alcove near the kitchen. It was Derek. He was sweating. His bow tie was crooked, and his eyes were wide with terror. "Are you insane?" he hissed. "Do you have any idea what you just did? You just nuked the family name." "I told the truth," I said, pulling my arm free. "Something you should try." "Listen to me," Derek said, his voice dropping to a frantic whisper. "We can fix this. Grandpa is freaking out, but we can fix it. Just go back out there. Say it was a misunderstanding. Say you were off your meds or something." "Excuse me." "If you drop the audit," Derek said, rushing the words, "we will give you the house, the townhouse on Ridge Road. We will deed it to you, free and clear, and the Lexus, and cash. I can authorize a transfer right now. 50,000. No, 100,000. Just tell them you were confused." I looked at him. I looked at the sweat beading on his upper lip. He was offering me a fortune, a house, a car, enough money to never worry about diapers again. But I saw the trap. If I took the money, I became an accomplice. If I took the house, I was bought. The help is just another cage. "Derek," I said, "I don't want your house. I want the audit." "You are going to ruin us," Derek shouted. "I will go to jail. Do you want your cousin in jail?" "You should have thought of that before you invoiced the charity for your ski trips," I said. "Anna." My mother appeared in the doorway of the alcove. Elaine. She looked breathless. She had followed us. "Mom," I said, bracing myself. "Don't tell me to stop. I am not stopping." Elaine looked at Derek. Then she looked at me. She reached into her purse. I thought she was going to pull out a tissue. Instead, she pulled out her phone. She walked past us, out of the alcove, and back into the ballroom. "Mom," I called. I followed her. Derek followed me. Elaine walked right up to the stage where Harold was still ranting to a group of horrified board members. He was red-faced, shouting about loyalty. It was Elaine. Harold was shouting. "She handled the mail. If anything was missing, it was her doing. She is incompetent." Elaine stopped. She stood at the foot of the stage. She didn't need a microphone. The room had gone quiet again to watch the meltdown. "I didn't lose the mail." "Harold," Elaine said. Her voice was clear. It was the voice of a woman who had been silent for 30 years. Harold looked down at her. "What did you say?" "I didn't lose Anna's mail," Elaine said, loud enough for the front 3 rows to hear perfectly. "I forwarded it to you, because you told me to. You told me to intercept her insurance notices. You told me to hide her bank statements. You said we had to create a crisis to get her to come back home." The gasp this time was audible. It was a collective intake of breath. "You shut your mouth," Harold snarled. It wasn't the voice of a patriarch. It was the voice of a thug. "You ungrateful, stupid woman. I bought the roof over your head. I own you." "No," Elaine said. She looked at me, standing by the kitchen doors. "You don't own us. Not anymore." She turned to the crowd. "He stole her mail," Elaine said to the room. "And he stole Rose's money, and I helped him because I was afraid. But I'm not afraid tonight," Harold snapped. It happened in slow motion. He lunged toward the edge of the stage, his face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. "I will ruin you," he screamed at Elaine, spittle flying from his lips. "I will throw you on the street. I will make sure you starve. You are nothing without me. You are garbage." The silence of the room was broken by a soft, digital beep. Someone in the front row, the wife of the bank president, had held up her phone. She had recorded the whole thing. And then another phone went up, and another. Harold froze. He looked around the room. He saw the glowing screens. He saw the faces of the people he had charmed for decades, now looking at him with revulsion. He saw the donors backing away. He saw his attorney, Mr. Sterling, close his briefcase and walk toward the exit without looking back. His power didn't explode. It evaporated. He slumped. He looked suddenly small, an old man in a tuxedo that no longer fit the myth he had built. I looked at Jordan across the room. He nodded once. It was done. I walked out of the ballroom for the last time. I walked past the valet stand. I walked past the fountains. I didn't go home. I went to Evan's apartment. It was 11 o'clock at night. The air had cooled. The humidity had broken, leaving a fresh, clean scent of rain on the pavement. I knocked on Evan's door. He opened it immediately. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking worried. "I saw the live stream," he said. "The bank president's wife posted it. Anna, my God. Is she sleeping?" I asked. "Out like a light," Evan said. "She didn't wake up once." He stepped back to let me in. I walked over to the portable crib he had set up in his living room. Nora was curled up on her side, her thumb near her mouth. She looked perfect. She looked free. "Harold is finished," Evan said quietly. "The comments on the video. People are calling for his resignation from the bank board. The police chief liked the post." "Jordan filed the request to freeze the accounts," I said, touching Nora's soft hair. "It is over. The money Rose left. It is going to be locked down until the audit is done. But eventually, it will come to the fund, to the new fund." "The Annabelle Restart Fund?" Evan asked, smiling slightly. "The Rosebell Restart Fund," I corrected. "I am just the delivery service." "You need a ride home?" Evan asked. "I can wake her up and put her in the car seat. I borrowed my mom's car just in case." I looked at him. He was offering a ride, not a condition, not a leverage play, just a ride. "No," I said. "I want to walk. It is a mile, Anna, and it is late." "I need to walk," I said. "I need to feel the ground under my feet." I picked Nora up. She stirred, making a small, sleepy sound, but settled against my chest. She was heavy, a solid weight of responsibility and love. "Okay," Evan said. He didn't argue. He didn't try to fix it. He just opened the door for me. "Text me when you get in." "I will." I walked out into the night. The streets of Briar Glen were quiet. The streetlights cast long pools of yellow light on the wet sidewalks. I walked with a steady rhythm. My arms ached. My feet hurt in the thrift store heels. But I felt a profound, vibrating silence in my head. The noise was gone. The narrative was gone. Harold's voice, which had lived in my ear for 33 years, telling me I wasn't enough, was finally silent. I was 3 blocks from my apartment when my phone buzzed in my purse. I shifted Nora's weight to one arm and fished the phone out. It was a text message from an unknown number. "We can settle this tonight. A car in your name, delivered to your door in an hour, and a check for $200,000. Just sign a statement saying the accountant was lying. Think about the baby. Don't throw away her future." It was Derek. Or maybe Harold, using a burner phone. Desperate. Bargaining with a ghost. I stopped walking. I stood under a street lamp. The moth light fluttering above me. A car. $200,000. It was security. It was easy. It was everything they had trained me to want. I looked down at Nora. Her eyelashes were long against her cheek. She was sleeping peacefully because she knew I was holding her. She didn't know about cars or trusts or galas. She only knew that when she needed to be held, I was there. If I took the car, I would be driving their vehicle. If I took the money, I would be spending their guilt. I would be teaching her that truth has a price tag. I looked at the phone again. I didn't reply. I didn't type a witty comeback. I pressed block caller. Then I pressed delete conversation. I put the phone back in my purse. I adjusted Nora in my arms, pulling the blanket up around her shoulders. We are walking. Baby girl, I whispered to her. We are walking on our own 2 feet. I started moving again. The click of my heels on the pavement was the only sound in the sleeping town. It wasn't the sound of a woman who had lost a car. It was the sound of a woman who had found her way home. The road ahead was long, and I would have to walk it every single day. But for the first time in my life, the map was mine. Thank you so much for listening to Anna's story. It has been a journey through the tangled webs of family control and the hard-won fight for independence. I hope this story resonated with you. I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below telling me where you are listening from. Are you in a small town like Briar Glen or a big city? If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to Revenge Stories for more tales of justice and drama. Share your thoughts in English in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, keep walking your own path.